Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
From a meeting at the office to a big first date, there's a lot of pressure to wear the right clothes for every event. But clothes don't make the man. So why stuff your closet with things that only work for some situations? With Mack Weldon, you can build a wardrobe that looks polished in any setting. Their clothing is understated and tells the world that you stay you wherever you go. They craft each piece by combining timeless style and modern performance materials, so you can stay looking good and feeling comfortable from morning to evening. No wardrobe changes required. Browse everything from summer-ready tech linen shorts and anti-odor polos to tailored sweats and crews for a night in. They can outfit you for anything, no matter what's on your agenda for the day. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code MACK25. That's MackWeldon.com. Promo code MACK25.
Millions knew him as the voice and the main songwriter of the Cars. Yet he was a mystery to those closest to him. We look back at the life and legendary career of Ric Ocasek with author Peter Aaron. That's next on Booked on Rock.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller! We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock. This is the podcast for those about to read and rock. And we have a first-time guest on the show. He is Peter Aaron. He's the author of the brand new book, Moving in Stereo, Ric Ocasek, the driving force of the Cars. Welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Eric, thank you so much for having me on. You're the first to do an interview in the wake of the book, and I'm honored that we're starting with Booked on Rock.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to this so much. Since starting this podcast, it's been, I think, 3 years. I've yet to cover a book on the Cars. So that's why I'm so excited to talk about this band. So this is, we were laughing because before we started, I fell right into the Ocasek pronunciation. It is Ocasek, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I was younger, before I knew, before it was pointed out to me, I certainly did the same thing. Ric's real last name, it was Otcasek, Otcsek, which is Eastern European name, and he dropped the T after a certain point. I guess he kind of felt like it made it less clunky, more streamlined, if you will. It's a common mistake, and I've seen interviews where it was said that way to his face, and he didn't flinch. So it sounds like he probably was okay with it, but
He is a man of mystery. He is, as you read in the book, an unreadable puzzle to many and a man of many dualities. So tell us about the process that you went through to come up with the story of Ric, because like he said, if you want to know about him, listen to the music, listen to the lyrics, and that's really the best way to find out about me. But yeah, there's still more that needs to be told. He's an interesting figure, and there's not much known about him.
Yeah, that's why I was excited to do the book, because I loved the Cars when they came out. I was totally consumed with the first few albums, and I always wanted to know more about him. But he covered his tracks really well. So there wasn't, like you said, there wasn't really any other substantial books about the Cars or relating to the Cars when I signed on to do this project. and that was part of what pulled me along. Was just he seemed like a very interesting, enigmatic artist. I loved his music. I loved the bands that he worked with outside of the Cars. I knew he was a hip, deep cat. But beyond that, I knew I was going to have to do some digging, and that's what it was.
Family members, bandmates with the Cars, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, certainly, I was able to talk to Greg Hawkes and to David Robinson, and they were fantastic, wonderful, very forthcoming people. But I also tracked down Ric's sister, Maureen. No one had ever spoken with her before. I found the drummer for his very first band, a band called Id Nirvana, Stephen Dodge, still lives in Columbus, Ohio, the area where the band was based. And I found the first drummer for Cap and Swing, which is a band that directly preceded the Cars. And we had Fuzzy Morse, who played guitar in Richard and the Rabbits, which was the band that directly preceded Cap and Swing. So we got a lot of inside sources during the process that I know that nobody else really talked to before. Well, Fuzzy Morse he's a well-known musician, and I think he's been interviewed several times about Ric and the Cars, but there's definitely some figures in there that were pretty deep in Ric's past. So I think people will enjoy meeting those people.
Yeah, the quotes from his sister, those are really important because it helps us understand his childhood a little bit more. Tell us about Ric's origins. His wife, Paulina Poroskova, is quoted in the book saying he had a tough childhood and his relationship with his parents was rough. He got picked on in school for being tall and thin. This may explain, as you describe, his walled-off personality in later years.
It seems like it did. In fact, that's one thing that David Robinson said was he thought that certainly a lot of how he carried himself on stage was related to maybe still kind of feeling awkward about his physique. But that when you're a kid, it goes both directions. Anything that anyone can find to pick on you about and you act in a way that gets under your skin. Kids will do that to each other, and it gets dealt with in different ways by different personalities. And Ric, rather than being an outwardly aggressive, like spoiling for a fight type person, he seemed like he internalized a lot of that and tried to express it in ways that were more personal. And I think that had a lot to do with making him an introvert, I guess you'd say, in a lot of ways.
The majority of his life, he lived in the Baltimore area?
Not the majority of his life. For the early part of his life, until he was about 16 years old, he grew up in a suburb of Baltimore called Tolson. And then when he was 16, his father, who worked for NASA, ended up getting a job in the Cleveland area. So he moved at that age. He moved to Cleveland, and being in Ohio is where he ended up meeting Benjamin Orr, and things just obviously evolved from there.
And the story behind how he meets Ben, that's also a tough story to nail down.
Yeah, because Ben had been in a band in Cleveland before he and Ric met called the Grasshoppers. Were very locally popular. This is during the mid '60s, right in the wake of the British invasion and kind of the garage band era. And the Grasshoppers were one of the most popular sort of Beatles-styled bands in Cleveland, and they ended up being the house band for a local American Bandstand type TV show. And that was on TV around the time that Ric was in maybe just out of high school or early college years in Ohio. So it seems like Ric would have seen that. But then the way they ended up meeting was Ben after playing in the Grasshoppers and a couple other bands, wanted to get into the sort of booking management end of things and was trying to book bands regionally. And he went to see Id Nirvana, Ric's first band, play, and that's kind of how they met. They after the gig, Ben came over to the house and played Beatles Yesterday on acoustic guitar, and Ric was blown away and talked him into joining Id Nirvana right away. But he also, in recounting that story, I've seen interviews where he says where, you know, acts like he'd never heard Ben sing or play guitar before, which is confusing, because if he'd seen the Grasshoppers, would have been on local TV in Cleveland. So it seems like he would have seen them, and he's talked about having heard other points, talked about having heard the Grasshoppers at other times. So it's sort of nebulous, but I think that all goes along with the way that Ric liked things, really.
Yeah. Ben Orr, originally Ben Orzechowski. Benny 11 Letters was his.
Benny 11 Letters, yeah.
Nickname. They really hit it off musically, it seems. Personally as well, they seem to be pretty close.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They seem to I've talked about them being extensions of each other. Ben had certain qualities that Ric didn't have, and Ben was a perfect way to channel songs and sounds that Ric had in his head that he couldn't do on his own. So it was kind of really a perfect symmetry. I mean, Benjamin Orr wasn't really a songwriter. I mean, he ended up making a solo album after, kind of toward the end of the Cars, or
Stay the Night. That was his big hit.
Yeah, had a hit, and he was writing songs with his girlfriend at the time. But he was more of more on the focus on being a musician and a vocalist. So I think that it was almost like they needed each other.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Patience, boys. All good things to those who wait.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations, because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy and features real testimonials.
This was our first time trying therapy, and honestly, it was long overdue. Looking back, we just wish we had started sooner.
Regain's qualified therapists help couples when they can't get there on their own.
We thought it was intimacy issues, but Andrea helped us uncover a deeper root cause we hadn't even realized was there.
Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. Regain, powered by BetterHelp.
To hear the sound of the Cars, it really surprised me to read that he was a fan of folk. He was a huge Bob Dylan fan. He loved poetry. That's really interesting. And in fact, him and Ben were in a band that was somewhat focused, like a Crosby, Stills and Nash type of thing.
Right. They were in a band called Milkwood that made one album for the Paramount label in 1972, 73. And the album didn't really come out very well from a production standpoint, and it wasn't really promoted for the labels by the label very well. So it didn't, it kind of like was sort of instantly in the cut-out bin. and the band broke up not long after that. But before that, going well back before that, the first performance that Ric ever did was a solo acoustic performance at a coffee house in the Bowling Green area when he was going to college. And then in Nirvana, the first band that he started was more of a garage psychedelic band. And Benjamin Orr joined that band, and it broke up, and they became a band called Leatherwood, which was kind of more of a folk rock band with, rhythm section and everything. And then Milkwood was basically an acoustic trio with Benjamin Orr playing electric bass. Another acoustic guitarist in the band named Jim Goodkind.
It really is interesting, the journey that it took to get to the Cars. I think, were they in their late 20s when the Cars finally hit big in the late 70s?
Yeah. I mean, Ric was about 29.
29.
Yeah, which is, 29, 30,
Yeah, I mean, as a rock musician, the clock is ticking, right? Coming up on 30.
Especially at that time, because it was really, these days, I think audiences are more accepting of different age performers, and there's a lot of younger people that discover performers that are older and maybe had pre-established careers, and that's sort of an accepted thing. But in those days, it was much more of a quick turnover and much more focused on youth, and part of that was Ric didn't talk about how old he was. He would be very evasive. And
I remember that there was a question that did he shave off some years in his biography, or
about 5 years, and it was that was something that was, after he died, was kind of uncovered by a New York Times reporter.
What is the exact year of birth?
He was born in 1946.
Yeah, mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
There are some fascinating stories in this book. There are so many, but the one about when he was young, I mean, he gets married, he has a child when he's only, I don't know.
Just out of high school.
Just out of high school.
Or basically last year to just after the last year of high school.
Yeah, his parents are thinking, oh, cool, he's going to settle down, because he ended up getting, I think, a regular 9-to-5 job. Was it at a bank or something?
He worked for the Bell telephone company, and drawing diagrams for switching systems.
Right. And what was the story about his friend saying one night they're all hanging out there and he hears the police siren and Ric splits, man. He runs out the back and says, don't tell him I'm here.
Yeah, that was the drummer for his first band for Nirvana, Stephen Dodge. And he was over his apartment one night, and they were hanging out, and the cops came to the front door, and Ric he just ran out, said, don't tell him where I went. And it was never explained after that.
Still doesn't know what it was about.
No.
He was flirting with the ladies. I mean, here's again, double life. And there's the Car song, Double Life. He was living that double life. I mean, when he's at home, he's the perfect family man. But when he's out there playing the gigs, he's living the lifestyle.
Yeah. There was obviously, these sort of two sides kind of vying for supremacy within, his psyche, and the artist side was just, could not be suppressed. Well, it was a more powerful side, and talking about the quote you mentioned at the beginning of things about the real way to know him was through the songs. I mean, that was a key thing that hit me with working on this book and learning about Ric as much as I could learn about him, was that music was who he was. Music was the most important thing in his life. It's what he was made of. And so that's why I tried to talk about a lot of the artists that were influential for him, and also the ones that he felt strongly enough to help with as far as producing their music or having them play with the Cars. It seemed like a love of music was what he really wanted to transmit into the world more than anything.
Velvet Underground.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Formative influences. And Bob Dylan, another artist who technically, Rick had a very interesting voice, and very striking, recognizable voice, and he could harmonize really well with Ben. That's something that they took from the Crosby, Stills, and Nash styled music of Milkwood into the Cars, and you certainly hear that on the first album a lot, especially. But like Bob Dylan, Rick was, he didn't have a Benjamin Orr type voice. He didn't have this sort of like classically, perfect, stunning voice, but
smoky voice, like you describe it in the book.
Right. Yeah. And that sort of crooner type quality. But like Bob Dylan, he was able to make it work within the greater framework of what he did. And that's something that not every artist understands how to do.
You mentioned he met up with Bob Dylan years later and they recorded a song together that...
I've never, as far as I know, they didn't record a song together, but they worked on at least one song together. They got to know each other. That's something that Ric talked about in an interview for Interview magazine. But
wow.
Not too many details beyond that. And it doesn't seem like, it seemed like maybe Ric realized not to kind of push it and lean on Bob as to take it further than what they did, I think respecting Bob Bob Dylan as an artist, and just being grateful for the experience of doing that.
Sure.
As a fan too.
So you talk about how serious he is about music, which is surprising to read that he did give up on music at one point. He moved back to Cleveland. Actually, Ric and Ben moved back to Cleveland. So, but if you could give the Cliff Notes version of how we get to the Cars.
Ric's second wife was a woman from Massachusetts, from Western Massachusetts, and Ric and Ben had a pretty good go of it with the band Leatherwood. Came to the New York area, moved upstate New York for a little bit. Nothing happened with that band. It broke up, and they went back to Michigan, which is where they had been just before. They went from Ohio to Michigan, and Ric ended up meeting this woman. They got married. They moved to the Boston area to be a little bit closer to her family, and they were living in Cambridge, which was a really good music scene, especially for folk music, and Ric had followed that. And he started playing with guitarist Jim Goodkind, and got Ben to come out, and they formed Milkwood. That lasted for a couple years. He made an album. They broke up, and then Ric started another band with Ben and some other musicians. Fusby Morse, guitar player, was in it, called Richard and the Rabbits, and their name was suggested by Jonathan Richman, whose band, the Modern Lovers, Ric was a huge fan of. And then that band broke up, and Ric and Ben started doing an acoustic duo. Well, Ben was still playing bass, and they called it Otcasek and Orr. So that was when he started using the O-C-A-S-E-K spelling. And then that led to Cap and Swing. And they had a showcase gig at Max's Kansas City, and it didn't go well. But part of what they got out of the gig, doing that gig that didn't go well, is they got some constructive criticism, and they made some changes and applied that constructive criticism to become the Cars.
And Ric, his vocal style changes around that time of Cap and Swing and into the style that we know of.
Yeah, it was interesting because this was during the early days of punk and / new wave, and that style of singing, kind of technically, how you say, non-virtuoso style of singing, worked with that music. You had people like David Byrne, and you had from Talking Heads, and Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo, and David Thomas from Pere Ubu, and Tom Verlaine from Television. This sort of quirky style of singing. And Rick had been his first influence, even before Bob Dylan, was Buddy Holly. That's
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, it totally skipped my mind, and then I'm now thinking about his vocal style. Now I hear the Buddy Holly influence in his vocals.
Yeah, it was, and some of that was, Roxy Music had some of that sort of space age 50s kind of synthesis going on in their music. Rick would definitely been, influenced by them. They were kind of mid 70s was when they were at their height. And so, he was able to kind of, do this sort of space age rockabilly kind of sound, to reach back to one of his favorite influences and sing in a way that was unique, that worked for the style of music and was perfect. I mean, you think about like, a song like My Best Friend's Girl. I mean, if somebody, singing in a real kind of emotive style, would have ruined that song, but there's sort of a little bit a little bit of childlike vulnerability in the way, in that style of singing, that kind of 50s nostalgic innocence of the Buddy Holly kind of earnest style. And this guy singing about his best friend's girlfriend used to be his, and there's obviously a little bit of like angst and pain in that. And for someone to sing that in a real kind of over the top, like American Idol, like overly confident kind of way, would it would have killed that song like dead in the water.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Come out wherever you are.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy. Let's be honest. Loving your partner doesn't mean you always like them, and guess what? That's normal. Regain, powered by BetterHelp, offers couples therapy that's flexible, affordable, and 100% online. Whether you're reconnecting or working through conflict, Regain is here to support you both. See why people wish they'd tried couples therapy sooner. Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. That's regain.com/couplespod.
I want to ask you about Maxine Sartori. I've read this story for many, many years, but the book really gets into it in detail, and you get some stuff in there that I didn't know about. You write, quote, to say that the then 23-year-old West Coast transplant Maxine Sartori was one of the most important and impactful figures connected to Ric's musical career would not be an overstatement. This takes us back to a time when FM rock radio still had that ability to break a band. But she was more than just that. She's more than just playing this band's music. She is watching them intently, giving them advice, giving her input, being honest about what she's seeing with the band and telling Ric, look, I think you really need to change your look, your image, things like that. So tell us about her, how she comes into the story, when the first time she finds out about them.
Yeah, Maxine Sartori, incredibly popular, not just to the car story, but to just the history of Boston rock and roll. She was on WBCN, which was at the time was kind of an upstart, sort of a hippie FM station, what it was called progressive music at the time, which was basically rock that was, not cloying, attempting to have top 40 AM radio hit type music. Bands could stretch out and play longer songs and play music that had a deeper feeling to it. And she was very well informed and very, very much ahead of the curve for what was cool up there. I mean, Dave Robinson in our interview for the book, like, talked at length about how she was so cool. She always knew all the coolest bands before anybody else did, and turned them on just to so much music. Ric in particular, she became like a mentor to Ric, and he listened obsessively to her show, which was on in the afternoon, prime drive time on WBCN. And WBCN was sponsored a street fair in Newbury Street or Back Bay area. And one of the bands that got on the bill was Cap'n Swing. And Ric had published a chapbook of poetry and went up to meet her and say he was a fan and gave her this signed book of poetry. And that led to him giving her tapes of Cap'n Swing. And she played some of the stuff on the show. It did it okay as far as audience reception, but nothing amazing. But they became closer friends, and she would play him all kinds of new music that became influential to him. And then after they had this kind of ill-fated showcase gig at Max's Kansas City in 1976, she helped kind of push him into trying some different ideas and some moves that clicked and became the Cars. And then when she started playing the Cars demos early demos of My Best Friend's Girl and Just What I Needed on WBCN, the radio went nuts. Like, they were became most requested songs on the station, and those songs were getting reported in the trade journals. And so these major label record industry people would see the Cars, Just What I Needed, and instead of where in the chart where there would be the name of the label that the recording was on, it would just say tape. And so that caught the eye of some of these labels. And it just so happened that the sister of someone from Elektra was going to Harvard, and the Cars would play at dances at Harvard frequently. And she talked her brother into coming up to see the band, and a couple other labels were snooping around, and that's how they got signed.
What a cool story. That's old school rock and roll right there.
Yeah.
And the first album is like, oh, by the way, the name the Cars, I think was David's idea. It was just no fancy story behind it, just like the Cars.
Yeah, he said, we made a list of names, and that was one of the names on it. He couldn't remember any of the other names that were on the list. But it was just, I guess it was just easy. Like that it sort of had connotations of fast movement and sleekness. And Ric was another big influence of his was Andy Warhol and pop art. And I think that the idea that it was sort of a very generic name and everyone knows what a car is, I think it appealed to him in that way, that it was sort of like ironically generic the way Campbell's soup can is or something.
Right. And I forget, was Maxan the one that said you guys should change the band name, or was it the band who decided, let's change the name? David wasn't there, right, with Cap'n Swing right away. They had a different drummer.
No, he wasn't. He
and Greg Hawkes, I think.
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, I think they felt that Cap'n Swing had such a their name would have become toxic because, this showcase gig in New York.
That's right.
It went so poorly that among labels that they figured that they should start anew and come up with some. And also, Cap'n Swing was sort of, it was sort of a glam rock name. It was sort of like, a Ziggy Stardust type figure. I think that Ric had in his head when he came up with the name, and there was a logo with a sort of a Superman type character, and the Cars, it kind of dead simple sort of fit with the garage band kind of punk ethos that was on the cutting edge at that time.
Hooked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Look, we're going to take a pause for the cause.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed, lab-proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
The first album, it's like a greatest hits album. The guys in the band have said it.
Yeah. They said it when it came out. They were calling it, right away.
I remember my older brother mentioning that too, so he must have read the band say that. It really is. Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, Just What I Needed. Then you got the album tracks, which are so great too. I'm in Touch with Your World, Don't You Stop. That finishes side 1. Side 2 is You're All I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo, Into, All Mixed Up.
Yeah.
Elliot Easton, Deathly Ill. I love this little minutia, the stories of recording. Elliot Easton, who's a very underrated guitarist, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Deathly ill with food poisoning while laying down his guitar solos for that album. Amazing. That tells you how great he is.
Yeah. What an incredible. He's someone that. Time just. Cars one of those bands where time is just sort of embellishing how great they were and in a parallel path to that also how incredible Elliot Easton is. Yeah.
Candy-O.
Oh God. Yeah.
That's so
and also that that segue of moving in stereo into all mixed up.
Oh, I love it.
And and that also that made it like if you're a DJ, you couldn't pick the needle up, because one song just naturally flows right into another,
And they showed they could rock. Don't Just Stop as a rocker.
Oh yeah. To me, that's the punk. That's the real punker on that album. That's like yeah. And they had a lot of great ones that didn't make it onto the Hotel Queenie. Great song.
I've never heard that.
Oh, it's great. It's a total punker. I mean, it would have fit well in like a set list by like the Damned or something. It's very Stooges kind of sounding. Is
that on Deluxe Edition? Is it on?
Yeah. There's a demo of it on the Deluxe, and there's also on the live album. There's a triple live album that was recorded at the Agora Ballroom in Cleveland in '78. That it came out as a record store day thing on vinyl. I don't know if it's still in print on CD but there's a version of it on there that's great. Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
Roy Thomas Baker, we got to talk about him. Now, he produced the album, known for his work with Queen. The things he does on this album, let's just focus in on the vocal harmonies. You mentioned the harmonies before. Already, Ric and Ben had a great combination there vocally with harmonies. But what he does here, Good Times Roll has 50 voices in one part.
Yeah. And Ric was at first was kind of like, whoa, that's sort of overdoing it. And then, he sat with the tape for a little bit over and was, got to like it. But yeah. And it's interesting because the way it's very extreme. I mean, Roy Thomas Baker, a lot of the stuff he did was very extreme. There's so much space in what he did. Like you hear in like Queen, like, okay, Death on Two Legs, okay? That solo that comes in on that is like all the way over here. It's panned all the way over here, and then the vocals are like these mass vocals are all the way over on this side. It's like it shouldn't work, but it's like with Good Times Roll, it's just like, Ric's lead vocal toward one side, and then the Good Times Roll part in the chorus, those mass voices only come in for that one line when it happens. It's very disjointed. It's not smooth, but somehow it works, and it doesn't throw you off at all. It draws you in. And that's who could come up with ideas like that back then, especially.
I didn't realize Good Times Roll, it's like a sarcastic thing that Ric was saying. Right?
Yeah.
People thought, let's let the good times roll, man. Let's party.
Yeah. Well, he was good with that. I mean, it's just, at that point he had been in a lot of bands that hadn't gone anywhere and had really been slugging it out. And, he was on food stamps and all this and kind of eating dirt and, it was sort of sarcastic, but the way it was received by most people who weren't really thinking about it were just like, yeah, party it up,
Right.
I mean, like Best Friend's Girl. I mean, there's that whole thing of like, this guy talking about his best friend's girl and how great she is. And then at the end, he sort of drops this bomb of like, well, she used to be mine.
Right.
Just like, yeah, I mean, it's deceptively complex.
When I was 19 years old, we had in a local radio FM rock station in New Haven had an amateur hour. And so they invite people to come on and play whatever they wanted for an hour. And I was so excited about it. And my very first song was Let the Good Times Roll. Wow. So here I was misunderstanding as well. Like, let's let the good times roll.
Yeah. Well, that's genius. That's genius,
Right.
It's just like, that's, and the influence of bubblegum rock, very kind of a hidden influence. I mean, Ramones saw themselves, or Johnny Ramone often referred to the Ramones as being twisted bubblegum. I mean, there's, the bubblegum music, very simplistic, supposedly made for like preteens back in the late 60s, early 70s. But that simplism was something that, was integral to early punk rock. And it was sort of a lot of bands kind of reappropriated that music and, took it in kind of a direction that maybe bubblegum fans wouldn't have anticipated. And that opening riff from Yummy, 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 I Gotta Love My Tummy. Dun, 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 dun. That was, co-opted for just where I needed. And I think that's one thing he learned was a way of like sneaking in these sort of double entendre, type things like, talking about Good Times Roll like that, or certainly later with a song like Tonight She Comes. I mean, come on,
my God, I love that song.
But it's like, he snuck that one in.
Sure.
Things like that,
The beginning, I love the beginning of Just What I Needed. I'm always trying to guess when he's going to come in with a double snare hit. He's hitting the snare once, hitting the snare once. When's he going to hit twice? And then the double bass. Do.
Yeah.
And
it keeps you on edge.
It keeps you on edge. Yeah.
It makes you pay attention.
Yeah. The album peaked at number 18 on Billboard in March of 79, spent 139 weeks on the chart. It has since gone 6 times platinum here in the U.S. Cars arrive in a big way. Now, they follow with the number 3 Candio in 1979, 4 times platinum. The number 5 million-selling Panorama in 1980. That album was a little bit of a slip there commercially. Shake It Up from 1981 went double platinum, peaking at number 9. Now, the hit singles during this period, it's staggering. From the first album right up to Shake It Up, Just What I Needed, My Best Friend's Girl, Good Times Roll, Let's Go, It's All I Can Do, one of my favorites, Touch and Go, another great one. The number 4, Shake It Up, Since You're Gone. All in or very close to top 40 with Shake It Up top 10. Along the way, however, Ric was increasingly opening up to producing. When did that side career start for him, and what do you think drew him to that?
Well, I think that he really liked the artful side of putting together music in on top of just writing songs. And, he listened so studiously to records when he was, kind of forming his own musical outlook. And I think it was just a natural extension of that. I think it was a way, first of all, if it was a band that he liked, that he could work with, then he was sort of putting his stamp on that band and saying that this is good stuff and I feel strongly enough that I want to be involved. So that's an expression in itself, but also shaping the sounds of those albums. It's another palette. It's another mode of expression, and obviously felt strongly about music and took it seriously. So I think he wanted to try and put as much good sounding music as he could out there, and also, being a very successful pop artist, he got to work with artists that were more experimental and very much on the other side of the spectrum from pop music, and I think that was very rewarding. And he would take influences from that music and slyly work it into the more commercial music that the Cars did.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
During our brief intermission, let's take a flying trip from the land of fantasy to everyday life.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic!
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
You finished chapter 27 by writing about where the band was at in 1982. You say, quote, "From the outside, things seemed more than perfect. Ric's band was riding high, and his career as a producer had started to take off, but inside the Cars camp, problems were brewing." Talk about where the cracks within the band begin. Is this with a management change?
It was a little bit after the management had changed. They ended up signing with a big West Coast manager who had worked with Jackson Brown and uh, some Joni Mitchell, and it kind of seemed like that he saw Rick as being as the Cars as being, since Rick was writing all the songs and singing uh, most of them even then, um, and involved with the sound. I think you started to see that the Cars were a situation of Rick and these guys that play with him, and that kind of started getting pushed a little bit, and I think that caused some of the divisions. And Rick was getting more interested in working in the studio and being a producer, and didn't want to tour as much. I think there's a combination of those things that really started to kind of start a wedge going in.
Moving in Stereo, Ric Ocasek, The Driving Force of the Cars is the book. Our guest is the author, Peter Aaron. What they achieved with 1984's Heartbeat City, you would think everything is going more than fine. Number 3 album, 4 times platinum, huge hit singles, Magic, Drive, You Might Think. There was a decision by Rick and the band to change not just where they recorded this album, but who would produce it. Talk about the location change and what led to Mutt Lange producing Heartbeat City.
Well, I think he just wanted to try something different. And also Roy Thomas, they'd made 4 albums with Roy Thomas Baker at that point. I think they wanted to try something different. I think Roy Thomas Baker was also working on another project around the time they wanted to record. And Mutt Lange had produced some very successful, commercially successful records. He produced Def Leppard. He produced AC/DC Back in Black. And he was also, Def Leppard, the stuff that he produced by them was certainly, they had guitars in the band, but those weren't really guitar records. AC/DC was guitars to the fore kind of thing. And also, I think that, I think that, Rick just wanted to try something that was maybe more, we're going to have pop hits. Let's try and have something that competes with, that end of the charts and that demographic. And
Mutt was the guy.
Yeah, and I think, just Rick liked to challenge himself also.
I love the album. I'm curious, though, what you think of how it stood up over time as opposed to that first album. I feel like I still love the first album. I listen to it all, or the Heartbeat City. I listen to it all the time, but you can hear a little bit, some dated production techniques as opposed to that first one is more like you listen to it and it doesn't sound of a time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you really nailed it. That the first one just has like a classic sound. It's got a good balance of cleaner, shinier elements, and I think Heartbeat City kind of leans more toward the cleaner, shinier elements, and doesn't have as much of the edgy elements in it.
One of the things before we move on and get into the breakup of the Cars, musically, the band is underrated, and I have a friend who's a drummer, and he loves that one song, Touch and Go.
Oh, yeah.
What is it that they are doing there that is so unique?
The time signature changes in a very unnatural way.
The synths and the drums are not lined up.
Yeah, the synth is doing the sort of stabby parts, and the drums are doing like a kind of like, it's almost like impressionistic. It feels like kind of like echoing it with a little bit of a lag or something. Yeah. But it's, somehow it's like, it feels like it's kind of fall apart or something, or fall down the stairs or something. And then it kicks in with that sort of like uplifting kind of like,
how do you describe that, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rockabilly kind of gallop. It's a little bit of a Mystery Train, a Johnny Burnett trio kind of, or like uh very Buddy Holly, Peggy Sue kind of drum pattern it goes into. Obviously Rick reaching back to that.
It really is probably the most interesting song to listen to of the Cars catalog musically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that album, I think that album it is really come into its own as being like one of their best albums. And I say this, a lot of people say it's the Cars Devo album.
We're talking Panorama?
Panorama.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's very avant kind of proto-industrial. You hear like maybe uh, David Bowie Heroes album a little bit in there, and a little like, obviously some Kraftwerk and krautrock stuff.
Yeah.
Bands like Noi, Harmonia, certainly Suicide and Devo. And not a lot of what Elliot Easton described the songs as being inside out songs, sounding like inside out music when Rick was teaching him the songs.
Perfect description.
Yeah, but there's no obvious. I mean, Touch and Go has that kind of hummable chorus part, but there's no obvious like huge choruses or sing along parts. Definitely not the masked vocals of the first album. It's interesting. I mean, those first three albums those are definitely my favorites, and the first one is just totally flawless. I think I come back to Candy O as being my favorite.
Oh my, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just garagey enough, and Double Life might be my favorite song.
Yeah, there's a dark aspect to some of those songs too.
Yeah, Dangerous Type.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There was a phone call that would change Rick's life. The call is with actor Timothy Hutton.
Yeah.
What happened?
David Geffen had been at a party with Timothy Hutton, and played him he had a tape of because David Geffen was associated with Asylum, and Electro Asylum were merged and everything for a little bit, and played him an advanced tape of Heartbeat City, and Timothy Hutton said, "I really like that song Drive." And Geffen got word back to Rick, and Rick called the next day and said, "How would you like to do a video?" Yeah. And then that's how Rick ends up. Paulina is, hired to be in the video.
Yep. She's in the video.
And that's how they meet, and just, the fuse was lit. And she had, talk about this, this is quoting her book, but she had seen a video for a song from Rick's solo album before, and, had on MTV, and had become infatuated with him. And then goes to, she was top paid model, had recently moved to New York, and was answered an ad for work to be in a music video and lo and behold, like, he walks in the room.
I was in the mall recently, and I saw this display of her. She's on an advertisement for jewelry or perfume or something like that. Still beautiful, but nothing fake. She's got the grays there. She's not trying to. She's got the wrinkles from getting older, and guess what? Still stunning.
Oh yeah.
No need for the plastic
Absolutely.
surgery and all this stuff.
Right.
And I love that. I just props to her for that.
Yeah.
I've always wondered what happened between Heartbeat City and the next album, which is 1987's Door to Door, which was a commercial disappointment, number 26 on the charts, went gold, but no hit single, and Cars Are No More. You write that the plan was to, quote, create something that was closer to the sound of their garage band beginnings. Instead, it would be the sound of a group falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Well, they were, all not really talking to each other, especially animosity was kind of, had really, had really blown up between Ric and Ben. I mean, they ended up, when they toured on that album, Ben wrote in his own vehicle separately from everybody else, and from what I understand, Ben was really resentful of he had approached Ric about writing some songs with his girlfriend for the Cars, and Ric had said no, that's not the Cars, and they'd had a falling out, and Ben didn't take it very well. So they, a lot of times they weren't all in the studio at the same time. They were just come in and record their parts. And there's 2 songs on that album that were songs that were in the repertoire during the punk era, the 76, 77 era, songs that were already written, and they went back to fill out the album. They went back to record those songs, Take What You Want and Ta Ta Wayo Wayo, which is a great song.
It's a solid album.
Yeah, I think there's some great, the title track that's a total, what a fierce rocker. That's like a hardcore song.
Sure, yeah. It just didn't have a huge hit single on it.
No. But there's definitely some great tracks on it.
Booked on Rock podcast. We'll be back after this.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. I'm getting another beer. You want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Find the Booked on Rock website at bookedonrock.com. There you can find all the back episodes of the show, the latest episode in video and audio, links to all of the platforms where you can listen to the podcast, plus all the social media platforms. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Also, check out the Booked on Rock blog, find your local independent bookstore, find out all the latest hot rock book releases, and before you go, check out the Booked on Rock online store. Pick up some Booked on Rock merch. It's all at bookedonrock.com. Elliot Eason talks about when Ric told him he was quitting. And this is in the book. They're mixing recordings for a radio program, and Ric is just saying, I think I'm going to leave the group.
Yeah.
And Elliot said, all the blood went to my feet. That was his quote.
Yeah. They were at Electric Lady, and they were, mixing some early live, recordings for a live album. And Ric just kind of dropped the bomb like that,
He was disappointed that Ric was becoming, as he just described it, self-absorbed, that he felt like he didn't want to rely on the band. He felt like he wasn't getting the credit he so deserved because this idea was that he needed the band around him to succeed.
Right.
And that made him resentful. But that's the management. That's the manager getting into his ear, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, who knows?
Who knows?
We weren't there, and those things are always very complicated. I would think like probably both of those things entered into things, but they're probably not the only things that entered into things too, but certainly wouldn't have been helpful in terms of like, smoothing things out. But also it's like, yeah, they did have a little bit of a break, a couple years um, between Shake It Up and Heartbeat City. Um, but there's always still work to be done. I mean, a lot of times with bands, it's it comes down to if and the Clash. I mean, Joe Strummer said this: if we had just had a break in there at some point, we would have, I think we would have been able to get through our.
Yeah, but it's hard because when you're a successful band, you're being pushed to go out there and get on the road, and then as soon as you're done, record an album, and you go round and round and round.
Yep, exactly.
But Ric had the first two solo albums were successful. He had in 1982, Beatitude.
Yes, yeah, it's a really good album. Yeah.
Top 30 album, This Side of Paradise in 1986. Was still technically, well, I believe he's still with the Cars. That's the number 31 album. But I remember in 91 when Fireball Zone came out, and I remember it was almost like, for me, these classic rock artists, I became such a fan that I was almost rooting for them like you're rooting for a team. And so I remember I listened to the first single from that album, and I was really hoping, I really wanted to see, because he had been out of the spotlight for a while, and I was hoping that it would hit, and it just didn't.
Yeah,
I'm
with you.
He was doing, he did Weezer around 93, 94, or maybe further out. When did he start working with them?
I think he started working with them in 92 and then, 93.
As a producer.
Yeah.
Those 15 years, he's doing a little bit of solo recording, but he's doing a lot of producing.
Yeah.
No Doubt? Did he do
No Doubt? I mean, before that, but going farther back, I mean, he did, his first production job, and the one that gets forgotten about, is he produced a single by a Boston band called Third Rail. They were an early punk band that they played at the Rat a lot. They're very Velvet Underground influence. So Velvet Underground were, one of his three greatest influences. He always says how the first Velvet Underground album thought was the best, best album, his favorite album. So he produced a single by Third Rail, which came out in 1978. And then he worked with a band from New York called The Fast. It's early punk band from New York. Sort of, they kind of started out at the glam era, and then it was transitioned into punk. And then, I talk about in the book how that. The singer Paul Zone, when they were working with Ric in the studio, Ric had a notebook he was looking at, and it turned out it was all these notes he had taken working alongside Roy Thomas Baker when the Cars were making the first album. So he was referring to all these notes about how to place microphones and all this. Yeah. And then the next band he worked with after that was Suicide, producing their second album, which that was his first, big known production job. But he produced The Bad Brains in 1982, and then the album Rock for Light. He produced an EP by them, and then the album Rock for Light, which came out in 83. He produced Romeo Void, Never Say Never. So he had a few things under his belt before Weezer and No Doubt and all that stuff.
Ben Orr, meanwhile, he's struggling after the Cars break up.
Yeah.
What's he doing during those years after the Cars?
Well, he made that one album, The Lace, which came out in 1985. Had that, the hit song Stay the Night. Is basically songs that he wrote with his girlfriend at the time. I think it was Diane Gray Page, I believe was her name. But had the hit, and I guess he was touring on it here and there, but he didn't make any other records after that.
It hit him hard, the breakup.
It seemed like it did, yeah. I mean, it's almost like, I think, and Jim Goodkind from Milkwood has said this about, I mean, other people said how Ben was just sort of like a go with the flow, sort of happy-go-lucky guy. but it seemed like he attached himself to Ric, like that he needed Ric more than Ric needed him. Just,
Yeah.
I think he was just one of those artists who was a fantastic player and singer. He could play any instrument, but not really a songwriter. You know, and you know, I think that I mean, yeah, Ric did some cool solo stuff. You know, the Beatitude, I think, was the height of his solo records, but it's interesting. It's like the situation is, to me, reminds me of the band with and without Robbie Robertson. I mean, I think that those guys are great players, but they weren't songwriters. I mean, Richard Manuel wrote a couple songs, and then he moved away from songwriting. And Robbie Robertson on his own, he made music, but I don't think it was and anywhere near as interesting as what he did with the band. And I think Ric needed the Cars, and the Cars needed Ric.
And Ben was self-medicating during that period, drinking.
From what I understand, like, yeah, Ric did. You know, he did. You know, obviously, I think his real, when he wasn't with the Cars, what he was doing, that the best. I mean, yeah, he definitely made some interesting solo stuff. But his production for other artists, I think, that had taken precedent, and I think he was comparatively doing better in that realm, you know, as an artist.
And Ric and Ben aren't talking until Ric finds out that Ben's health is failing, and you better talk to him, and you better do this, otherwise it's too late, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if you've watched that interview that was done right before, you know.
Yes.
Certainly
very hard to watch.
Very hard to watch, Ben. Great interview, and you know, one of the things that really came across to me watching that interview is that I think everybody came across like how they were all good guys, man, you know.
Really? So yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And he was so thin and frail, Ben Orr, but he was there. He made it.
He was there, yeah. And from what I understand, you know, the two of them were able to get together and you know, kind of mended the fence, I guess, as much as you can with, you know, the situation at that point. But you know, it's certainly good that it happened, and the interview is, as hard as it is to watch Ben, it's a great interview, and there's some very funny moments.
Yeah.
You know, memories.
That was for an anniversary video, wasn't it? It was to mark the anniversary of like a.
I can't remember if it aligned with anything, but it was an extra on a DVD of the Cars' appearance on a 1978 German music TV show called Musikladen.
Okay, this is in 2000, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the set, it's a 1978 TV appearance by the Cars on this German show, and it's great. I mean, you know, they're really at their height, you know.
And Ben passed away shortly after that.
Yeah, like I want to say like just a couple months later. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, October 3rd, 2000. It says here.
Yeah.
Well, I wish he could have been part of that album in 2011. That was a Move Like This.
Yeah.
Which shocked Elliot and Greg. They went out as the car. Well, they called it the New Cars with Todd Rundgren on vocals, 2005. There was actually an attempt to get Ric on board for this, but he didn't want anything to do with it.
No, he didn't want to. I think, you know, I mean, from what David says, you know, that like lawyers management got involved and sort of like didn't you know didn't lay out the offer in the right way, or
didn't help any.
Right. Didn't help. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know, Ric was obviously, he was doing well as a producer at that point, and he was more focused on that. So I think that had part of the reason, and also maybe didn't have any new material. You know, he ended up writing the songs that became Move Like This later on. And when he was writing those songs, it was sort of hit him. Maybe it'd be good to do it with the guys.
Yeah, the guys were a little surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
Elliot gets the call out of nowhere. Hey, what do you think? You want to do this? Sure.
Yeah, they were happy. And that's a great record.
Thank you. I was going to ask you about that. It really is an outstanding record.
Yeah, Blue Tip is right up there with one of their best songs, I think.
Yeah, there's quite a few songs on there that maybe some fans haven't really checked out because it didn't do all that well as far as getting airplay on the radio, because by that time now a lot of these heritage classic rock stations were more interested in what these bands did in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend that album. If you had any qualms about it, like, you will not be disappointed. And if you like that kind of Cars, like new wave, sound like that, it's great. I think I think it's one of their best albums. I think, maybe, I don't know, maybe since it might even, after Panorama, it might be my next favorite,
Wow, how about that? Yeah, Blue Tip, Too Late, Soon,
yeah.
Sad Song,
yeah.
Take Another Look is another one I love.
It's solid. I mean,
if you're a fan of the Cars, you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one. I mean, obviously, if Ben had been there, who knows, how much, if it would have been, would have been great, but it's still a really good note to go out on, for sure.
Yeah, and they went out on the road, but that was limited, and we would find out eventually that's because Ric was not doing well, right?
Yeah.
What was the cause of death?
Hypertensive and arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease, also known as arteriosclerosis.
Yeah.
An accumulation of plaque in the arteries that often weakens the heart's muscle, and pulmonary emphysema was listed as a contributing factor. So the smoking, he had quit, I think, like 14 years before he died, but he'd smoked for a long time before he quit, so it didn't help.
Yeah. And then lo and behold, again, with the mystery that Ric Ocasek was, he's living with Paulina, but they are separated. She's seeing other people, but he's still there. They're living together, and she's the one who finds him.
He went to bed, and she came in the morning to bring him coffee and check on him, and that's what she found him.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed, lab-proven to work fast, and proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out the Booked on Rock podcast. If you've just found the podcast, welcome. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your support. And make sure you tell a friend, a family member, share on social media, and let people know about Booked on Rock. And if you do like the podcast, make sure you subscribe, give a 5-star review wherever you listen to the Booked on Rock podcast. We're on Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, and on YouTube Music. You can check out the full episodes on video, along with video highlights from episodes on the Booked on Rock YouTube channel. Find it at Booked on Rock. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. And you do have a chapter on his separation with Paula just after Ric spoke at the Cars Rock Hall of Fame induction. She posted on Facebook that they'd split, and it seems as that they had a complicated relationship. Like Greg Hawkes said, as long as he played with Ric, he still felt like he didn't really know him. Yet, she was, and then it kind of gets ugly. It kind of gets sad that it's something about his will. She's not in it. I didn't
get into any of that stuff at all.
Now that's stuff that, that's their business.
Yeah, I don't want to. And whatever she wanted to have covered out about that is in her book. So, I mean, I'm a music fan. Music is my life. And I saw that in Ric too, especially as I started learning more about him. So that's what I wanted to focus on with the book. And I think that that's what people want to remember him for.
I listen to the music now, and after reading the book now, I'm listening intently at the lyrics and try to determine who's this about? What's this about? What's he thinking,
Yeah, well, a lot of it is like, he was influenced by the beat poets who used words in a very surreal way. And that's something that Bob Dylan had started doing too, which is one of, early on. So that's in Bob Dylan, big influence on Ric, formative influence. So a lot of it is words just used to create images, maybe.
So it may not even be autobiographical.
Yeah,
maybe
but
it
not
is.
always. But not always.
And that's the way I think Ric would like to have it. Now, did writing the book give you a better idea of who Ric Ocasek was as a person for you? Or is he still a mystery?
He's still a mystery, yeah. But there's definitely some things I learned that I feel like gave me a better idea. But there's some things that they help me see the music itself in ways that I hadn't before and appreciate the music. Thinking about some part of his life while I was listening to a song, and that opened up some new doors. But it's interesting. I mean, like we were saying before, Greg Hawkes saying that he played in a band with a couple bands and felt like he never really knew him. And there was like during one, Greg Hawkes had told me the story about how it's in the book. They first tour, they were out in it was 79, so it might have been the tour for Candio, but they were playing in Portland, Oregon. And I know Greg has told this story in other interviews, but Ric mentioned, my son might be at the show tonight. And Greg only knew about his son that he had with his second wife back in Boston, where Greg met him. Greg had no idea that he actually had a wife before his second wife, Suzanne, and let alone that he had 2 kids with that first wife.
Never came up during conversation. It's like, yeah.
And Ben would have known about it because Ric had known Ben during that time, but Ben never mentioned it to anybody either. And
it's amazing.
Yeah.
All the life on the road, they're all up in each other's face all the time and hanging out, talking.
Yeah, well,
never came up.
It was all about the music.
Yep.
And Ric's first wife was a woman named Connie. And I mentioned that, and Greg was like, I've never heard that name before. And
God.
I never even knew what her name was. Yeah. So there was some amazing things that I kind of stumbled into.
Yeah, to me that's fascinating to me. I mean, that you're talking about an era prior to the internet and social media and all that stuff. So I'd like the mystery. That I miss the mystery in my favorite.
It's a mystery, and it was definitely like being a detective, trying to do this thing. So,
well, the book is out today as we're recording this, right? September 18th is the release date,
yes,
I believe. So
yes,
people can get it now. Moving in Stereo, Ric Ocasek, the driving force of the Cars. It's out
3 years
now.
after Ric's passing.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Find the book wherever books are sold. Look for it at your nearest bookstore. You can also go to bookdownrock.com to find your nearest independent bookstore. People can find you online, Peter, social media, website.
Yeah, I have a page for it's called Peter Aaron, musician and author on Facebook.
Okay.
That's good.
So people can reach out to you there. Peter, thank you again. I was looking very much forward to this to talk about the Cars, and now I'm going to listen to some Cars music.
Right on. That's the goal. Awesome.
All right, Peter. Thank you.
Eric. All right, man. Have a good one.
That's it. It's in the books.
Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.